Have you ever poured your heart, your time, and your soul into a man, only to watch him slowly drift away as if you were nothing more than a passing distraction? You gave him affection, loyalty, your laughter, and your warmth. But instead of pulling closer, he became colder, more distant, treating you as if your presence was optional. You kept telling yourself that maybe if you just loved him harder, forgave him more, smiled at the right moments, he would finally see you. You tried to be the perfect partner, the patient listener, the passionate lover, the safe place he could always return to. You gave him chance after chance, forgiving things you swore you'd never tolerate, all while convincing yourself that his rare crumbs of attention were proof of something real. But deep down, you felt it. You were losing yourself in the process. Here's the truth most women never want to hear. A man's ego is not tamed by your kindness, your sacrifices, or your desperate loyalty. It doesn't respond to how many chances you give him. It responds to how you make him feel about himself. And until you understand the primal way a man's ego works, you will keep playing a game you can't win. The male ego is fragile and hungry, a strange mix of insecurity and arrogance wrapped in a body that pretends to be in control. Inside, even the most confident man is a boy aching to be seen as special, irreplaceable, and chosen above all others. Every smile you give too easily feeds him. Every time you bend to his moods, you reinforce his illusion of power. But here's his weakness, the crack in his armor. When you take away that constant stream of validation he's used to, when you stop being the predictable source of admiration that he thinks belongs to him by default, you create a void, and a man's ego cannot stand a void. That emptiness begins to itch at him, whispering questions he can't silence. Why isn't she looking at me the same way? Why does she seem fine without me? Has she replaced me? That uncertainty is where the seed of obsession begins to grow. Every time you run after him when he pulls away, you inflate his ego but kill his desire. The more you show that you're willing to fight for him, when he's not fighting for you, the more he knows he has you under his control. And a man who feels secure in that way, not emotionally safe but ego safe, loses interest. He won't respect what he doesn't have to earn. You can't plead your way into value in his eyes. You must let him feel the cost of losing you. This is where your true power lies. Not in making him comfortable, but in making him wonder. Not in chasing, but in stepping back with silent confidence. When you create emotional scarcity, when your attention is no longer on tap, when your presence is no longer guaranteed, you disrupt his entire rhythm. He expects you to explain yourself, to prove yourself, to fight for the connection. Instead, you give him silence. You let him sit with the discomfort of not knowing where he stands with you. That's when his mind starts running in circles, trying to find the path back to the feeling you once gave him so freely. Silence is not emptiness. It is power in its purest form. A woman who can remain silent when provoked, who doesn't rush to fill the air with explanations, forces a man to feel the weight of her absence. When he's used to your constant presence, your withdrawal becomes deafening. It shakes his ego because it reminds him that you are not his possession, and that, more than any argument or declaration of love, hits him at the deepest level. But here's the paradox you must embrace. The moment you make yourself too available, too predictable, you lose your magnetism. The moment he feels certain of you, he stops chasing. Men are wired to value challenge, not toxic drama, but the unshakable presence of a woman who cannot be controlled, who cannot be predicted. Your strength is in being the woman he cannot figure out, the woman who leaves the conversation first, who doesn't reply right away, who doesn't drop everything when he calls. That's how you shift the balance. Not with manipulation, but with self-respect so strong it unsettles him. When you master this, you stop playing by his rules. You decide when you're available. You choose when the connection deepens and when you let it breathe. You stop reacting to his moods and instead, you move with your own rhythm. This subtle but seismic shift is what turns the tables. It's what makes him start watching you, wondering about you, craving you. Because now you're not the woman begging to be seen. You're the woman he fears losing. Picture this. He sends you a vague, half-hearted message, maybe a cryptic "hey" or some meaningless emoji, just to see if you'll bite. Most women take the bait instantly. They overthink it, respond right away, maybe even ask for clarification. But a woman who understands her power does the opposite. She doesn't reward breadcrumbs. She waits. She responds on her time, with brevity, without leaning in emotionally. Not because she's playing childish games, but because she refuses to let him control the tempo. And that quiet refusal can shake a man more than any argument ever could. When a man expects you to cling and you instead glide away, you disrupt his entire ego cycle. He thought he had you neatly wrapped around his finger, but suddenly you're unpredictable. You're not where he left you. You're not playing the role he cast you in. This confusion breeds restlessness, and restlessness is the birthplace of obsession. It makes him chase not because you begged, but because you've become the one puzzle he can't solve. And here's the secret he will never admit. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth to him is the moment he begins to feel he might lose you. Men don't value what they believe they own without effort. They value what they fear slipping away. When you take that certainty from him, when you let him feel the weight of your absence, he is forced into a silent emotional crisis. His ego scrambles to restore itself, and the only way to do that is to win you back. But let's be clear, this isn't about pettiness or cruel games. It's about reclaiming the balance of power by removing yourself from a dynamic that drains you. You are not withholding affection to punish him. You are withholding it to protect yourself. You are not retreating in fear. You are stepping back in sovereignty. This is a psychological reset, and it's one of the most potent tools you can ever use. Men often confuse availability with value. They believe that if you're always there, always ready, always forgiving, then you must need them more than they need you. And the human ego, male or female, rarely treasures what it perceives as too easy to keep. But when you break that pattern, when you show that your life doesn't revolve around him, he begins to see you differently. He begins to question the comfort he's taken for granted. He begins to imagine a life without your warmth, your attention, your presence, and the thought unsettles him to his core. Your silence is not just an absence of words, it's a mirror. In it, he sees himself, his actions, his neglect, his arrogance, reflected back without distortion. And that reflection can be brutal. It forces him to confront the fact that you are not bound to him, that you have the power to walk away. And that realization does something dangerous to his pride. It forces him to work for you again. The irony? When you stop centering your world around him, you become more magnetic than ever. Your energy shifts. You radiate self-focus, self-respect, and self-possession. You start moving differently, speaking differently, carrying yourself like a woman who has nothing to prove. And people, not just him, notice. You start attracting opportunities, attention, and admiration from places you never expected. And that, more than anything, will haunt him. Because he'll realize you're not just surviving without him, you're thriving. You're more alive, more luminous, without the weight of his shadow. This is where the real sting comes in for his ego. Not from your words, not from any direct confrontation, but from the undeniable evidence of your growth. He sees you shining, not because you tried to make him jealous, but because you've turned all the love and energy you once gave him inward, into yourself. You've become the woman he underestimated, the woman who no longer waits for him to appreciate her. And understand this, when a man feels like he's no longer the center of your universe, his mind starts spinning. He wonders if you've replaced him, if you're entertaining someone else, if you're slowly closing the door on him. That fear, that possibility of losing the control he once had, is the spark that lights the fire of obsession. He starts craving your attention, not because you gave it freely, but because now it's rare. Now it's precious. Now he has to earn it. Every relationship, no matter how fiery at the start, eventually settles into a rhythm. He acts distant, you chase. He withholds, you explain. He plays aloof, you try harder. It becomes a predictable choreography where he leads and you follow, until one day you realize you're dancing to music you didn't choose. The only way to break that pattern is to stop moving to his beat entirely. When he turns cold, you don't turn warm to make up for it. When he ignores you, you don't respond with panic or questions. You do nothing, and that nothing speaks volumes. When you remove yourself from the script he's written for you, he loses his sense of control. He's used to women responding a certain way, to his silences, to his mood swings, to his subtle tests. But you're not playing along. You're not giving him the reaction he counted on. And that's when something primal inside him stirs. It's not love in the soft, romantic sense. It's an urgent need to restore the dominance he feels slipping away. But in that process, he starts chasing you. The man who once took you for granted suddenly finds himself fighting for a seat at your table. The danger for him is that by the time his ego wakes up, you've already shifted into a different state of being. You're no longer the woman who needed his attention to feel complete. You've tasted the clarity and peace that comes from not depending on his approval. And that change in you is magnetic, not just to him, but to the entire world. People can sense when a woman carries herself like she belongs to herself, when her worth isn't up for negotiation. That kind of presence doesn't beg, doesn't explain, doesn't chase. It simply exists unapologetically, and it draws everything of value toward it. When he realizes that your world is bigger than him, that you have passions, goals, and a life that doesn't pause in his absence, he feels something he hasn't felt in a long time: replaceable. And for a man whose ego thrives on being the only one, that feeling is unbearable. It forces him to see that if he doesn't act, someone else will. Not because you're flaunting other options, but because you are the kind of woman who naturally attracts them. But here's where your discipline matters. You can't break the spell by rushing back the moment he shows interest. If you fold too quickly, you'll prove his ego right, that all he has to do is tug the string and you'll return. You must let him sit in the discomfort, let him stew in the uncertainty, let him taste what life is like without you as his emotional safety net. That's the lesson that will shift the power dynamic for good. And while he's wrestling with that loss, you keep building yourself. Your body, your mind, your circle of friends, your work, your joy, all of it gets your energy now. You become too busy growing to obsess over whether he's watching. Now, ironically, that's when he watches the hardest. Every glimpse of your progress is a blade to his pride, a reminder that you're not waiting in the wings for him to return. And nothing unsettles a man more than realizing you've outgrown the place he once held in your life. This is not cruelty. This is self-preservation. This is emotional sovereignty. It's the conscious choice to stop pouring yourself into a cup with holes in the bottom. It's refusing to let your value be defined by someone who couldn't see it when it was right in front of him. And it's the understanding that the most powerful form of attraction isn't in what you give endlessly, but in what you protect fiercely. So when he starts circling back, when he sends the late night "I miss you" messages, when he tries to spark jealousy, when he drops hints about seeing you, you don't rush, you don't leap at the bait. You move with the same calm, deliberate energy you've been cultivating. Because by then, the truth will be clear. The game has changed. You are no longer playing to win him. You are playing to keep yourself. And in that shift lies the deepest power a woman can ever hold. There comes a moment, if you hold your ground long enough, when the shift becomes undeniable. He's no longer the one deciding when and how you connect. You are. The man who once kept you guessing now finds himself second-guessing everything. He replays your last conversations in his head, searching for clues. He stalks your social media not to admire you, but to reassure himself that you haven't fully slipped away. Every picture you post, every time you're out with friends, every sign that you are living fully without him, it's a sharp twist to his pride. He starts to feel something unfamiliar: powerlessness. And for a man whose ego has always been fed by control, that feeling is maddening. You become the riddle he can't solve, the one exception to his unspoken rule that women always come back. That thought alone keeps you lodged in his mind at odd hours, in the quiet moments before he sleeps, in the middle of a meeting, when he hears a song that reminds him of you. It's not just desire anymore. It's compulsion. He's not chasing you simply because he wants you. He's chasing you because his ego can't stand the idea that he lost the one woman who wouldn't bow to him. And here's the beautiful irony. By the time he's this consumed, you're not even playing the same game. You've evolved beyond it. His obsession no longer defines your worth. It's just background noise to the life you're building. You've stepped into a state of self-awareness so solid that whether he stays or goes barely changes the ground you stand on. You've learned that true power is not in making him fall for you. It's in not needing him to. That's why, if he does come back, he will sense the difference instantly. He will feel it in the way you look at him. Calm, clear, unmoved. He'll notice it in the way you speak, no longer softening your truths to protect his feelings. And most of all, he'll see it in your boundaries. Unshakable, unapologetic, drawn not from anger, but from self-respect. This is the version of you that he can't manipulate, can't predict, can't fully possess. And that, to his ego, is intoxicating. But you won't hand that power back. You've tasted what it's like to live without constant validation. You've learned that your energy is a privilege, not a consolation prize. And you've realized that withholding it until it's genuinely earned is not cruelty. It's the highest form of self-love. You've shifted from the woman who fought to prove her value to the woman who lets her value speak for itself. When you reach this place, something extraordinary happens. You no longer need to get him back for the satisfaction of winning. If he returns, it's because he sees the change, feels the distance, and wants to bridge it, not because you begged. And if he doesn't return, you don't crumble. You don't spiral into self-doubt, because now you understand something he may never grasp. Your worth was never in his hands to begin with. And this is the paradox that will keep him hooked for as long as he knows you. The less you need him, the more he needs you. The more you prioritize your own life, the more he will try to be part of it. The more unpredictable your availability, the more predictable his pursuit will become. He will keep circling, trying to reclaim the comfort he once had, unaware that the woman he remembers no longer exists. You've become someone else entirely. Not harder, not colder, but clearer. A woman who walks away without slamming the door, who smiles without needing permission, who loves herself enough to choose peace over chaos. And that is the kind of woman a man never truly gets over. There is a point in every woman's journey where she finally sees the truth with painful clarity. You were never losing him. You were losing yourself. All the chasing, the explaining, the hoping, the forgiving, none of it was about love. It was about trying to fill an emptiness in him that only he could fill. And the cruel irony is, the more you tried to heal his insecurities, the more he fed on yours. When you stop feeding a man's ego with your constant approval, you do more than create desire. You reclaim your life. You stop living as a reflection of his moods and start living as the source of your own light. That's the moment you stop existing in reaction to someone else and start existing in creation of yourself. Understand this. The man who truly sees you, the one worth keeping, won't need you to play this delicate dance to keep his interest. He will meet you in your strength, not try to chip away at it. But until you meet him, you must protect yourself from the ones who only know how to love through control. And that protection comes from knowing that your absence can be more powerful than your presence, that your silence can speak louder than your words, and that your energy is not something to be given freely to those who cannot hold it with respect. A man's obsession is not the prize. The real prize is the woman you become in the process of learning that you don't need it. His pursuit, his longing, his regret, those are just echoes bouncing off the walls of the space you've created between you. They may feel satisfying in the moment, but they are nothing compared to the unshakable sense of self you now carry. Because here's the ultimate truth. Once you've mastered the art of stepping back without fear, of letting go without resentment, of walking away without needing closure, you have stepped into a realm most people never reach. You have become untouchable. You are no longer chained to his validation, his attention, or his approval. And when you stand in that place, you radiate something far more magnetic than beauty or charm. You radiate freedom. Freedom is irresistible. It's what makes people want to be around you without even knowing why. It's what draws the right kind of man toward you, not because he thinks he can possess you, but because he respects that he never will. That is the kind of power that cannot be faked, cannot be taken, and cannot be broken. So let him watch you rise. Let him feel the sting of your absence and the ache of your silence. Let him wrestle with the reality that he no longer has access to the woman he once thought was his. And let that be the quiet lesson he never forgets. That the greatest loss a man can experience is not a woman's love, but her respect. And once it's gone, it never returns. You walk away not as the woman who lost a man, but as the woman who found herself. And that, my dear, is the kind of ending that isn't really an ending at all. It's the beginning of the life you were always meant to live.